If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at ordinarywomenpodcast, on Twitter at ordinarywomenpc, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Ordinary Women. I'm welcoming Tricia today. Hi, how is it going?
Hi, it's great to be here. And really looking forward to taking part in this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in, accepting to participate. Looking forward to hearing everything that you have to say. Can you start by giving us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tricia. I'm the mum of 2 teenage boys. I'm married. I live in rural Hertfordshire. I work full time and I'm an inclusion and diversity manager in early talent. I'm really passionate about inclusion and diversity. I'm passionate about supporting women to believe in themselves and just to be ordinary women, but just for everyone to know how remarkable they are.
That's amazing. That's right on spot with the topic of this podcast. And can you tell us something unusual about yourself?
Wow, I've got a passion actually. One of my unusual things is my passion for artisan bakers and bread and patisseries. I'm always on the lookout for them. I will travel quite a distance to visit my favourite bakers. If I can mention Holt White's in Chaseside and Worcester's Bakery in Suffolk, to just name 2 of the fantastic ones. Yeah, I love sourdough bread. I love really good pastries. I love travelling to France for their boulangeries and patisseries. But yeah, that's the unusual thing and my passion.
As a French person, I feel you. Bread is just amazing. What has been your best bread experience with an artisan baker?
Oh wow. Gosh. I'm lost for words. I don't know where to start. The one I go to quite regularly. I just love the freshness of their bread, and their pastries as well. So I can't even just name one. Although I think if I'm in France, although it's not bread, it's the chausson pomme. But actually, French baguette. There's something about it. You don't need anything with it. You just get a really good baguette, and it's the simple, it's the basics. And I'm sorry, I know I do support English bakers, and they are making some great bread, but I just love that French bread.
Cool. Thank you for sharing this.
That's okay.
And since here obviously we talk a lot about what it means to be a woman, etc., I like to start the podcast by asking, was there a moment in your life when you realized that you are a woman?
Wow, that's actually quite a tough question, and it's not one that I can't even really say yes as such. Obviously, you're aware of that, and I'm sort of torn because I think growing up, women back in when I was younger, they were always sort of showed as these sort of simpering, high-heeled people that were always needing a man, and I didn't want to be like that. So, that was quite tough. And my mum was a woman and she was, quite a good role model for me. Not quite, she was a very good role model for me. But I guess it was something like, partly, I never quite know. I know I am, but you sort of just forget that you want to get on with your life. But others, I was a teenager watching things like Grease when, at the end, we all wanted to be Sandy in those skin-tight satin trousers and high-heel mules. Which, it's playing into stereotype. But actually, I think I really want to be Rizzo. Yeah. I like the independence of her. So maybe it's things like that as you're a teenager that makes you suddenly realise, oh, wow, I've grown up. I want to be like that in some ways. But it was also finding a woman that just, you partly wants to look like that, but you still want to be tough. And you say, that's why I'm thinking, watching something like Grease makes you think, yeah, I want to be like that. And that sort of as a teenager or young teenager, puts being a woman in your head more. Because before that, there seemed to be a bit disparity. You're a child and then there's these grown-ups doing things, but it's that in-between bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I hadn't thought about Grease in a long time, but I absolutely love that movie. But it's true, I think I've always been a bit, obviously you do want to look like Sandy at the end of the movie, though.
Oh, at the end of the movie.
I thought that, at the beginning of the movie. But at the same time, thinking about it now, with the more, adult perspective, I'm also thinking, I would never change my entire personality for a man. Come on. But that's true, that Rizzo, she's the strongest, It's also very funny how they make her appear as not as nice, but actually she's also
at some point you kind of see still her vulnerability.
You can see her vulnerability, and I think that's it, which you probably don't see, or I didn't see when I was younger watching it. And you say, everyone's like, oh, it's Sandy, she's the person, you know, the heroine of the film. And I think, you know, back then did we dress up for men, or did we dress up for ourselves? Did we dress up for other women? It was all sort of, you know, part of that look, peacock, how we all look, you know, new clothes on a Friday night and the full makeup and stuff, which Rizzo wasn't really doing. She was, you know, she didn't have the long hair, she had the short hair, she did her own thing, and I can see that now and think, yeah, that's me, yeah.
Yeah, she was already like so strong in herself, and like, yeah, as you said, independent, and that's, she should have been the well, maybe not for everything, but
we'll rewrite it.
But yeah. Cool. Speaking of which, did you grow up with any film and role models?
Well, do you know what? I've given this some great thought about female role models in my life, and I think role models back then were very different, and you know, it was actually closer to home rather than people on screen or in the news as it quite often is now. Thinking back, and I maybe didn't appreciate it at the time, but definitely my mother and a long-standing family friend we call Auntie Kath as well, who's just so cool. But my mum, she was a domestic science teacher, so she could cook. She baked all the time, her own bread. She'd knock up a dinner party, you know, in a flash. She could sew, cushions, curtains, our clothes for our dolls, just all that, you know, rewire a plug and be quite sort of independent thinking. And back at the time, I remember her talking to me about not using spray deodorant and CFCs, and I just thought, what is she on about? Because people back then in the early 70s weren't really talking about the environment and planet, but my mum was on it. You know, she bargains in charity shops, or make do and mend it was called then, you know, upcycling as it is now. And although to start with, I didn't always appreciate it, I realised that's sort of inherent in me, and I'm always hanging out in those places. You know, when I was young, I have to confess, my mum was in a charity shop. I was a few doors up thinking, this is so embarrassing, people will think we're poor. But actually, it wasn't like that at all. My mum could just see the benefit in this. So she had all this going on. And then at the same time, it was almost that dichotomy where she was traditional housewife. So she would do all this, and then it'd be like, tidy the room, makeup on, clean dress on, almost greet my dad at the door with a cup of tea, and then dinner on the table. So she was doing so much. And so I think, yeah, she's a great role model. And my Auntie Kath is I just think she's so cool. She has the coolest flat in the world. I don't know why, it's, you know, that's a bit superficial, but I just used to love going to her flat in Leeds. It was near Leeds. It's just so stylish. I call her very early Conran, early Habitat style, mid-century. And she just was, well, not still is. I don't know, it's just her demeanour, her way she talks to people, sort of very calm, collected. So it wasn't just, you know, the curiosity of her modern way of living and things, even the way she wrapped her towels. I was just overawed by all this. But it was just the way, and she cooked as well, so it was cooking and just watching her. And I don't know, there was just something about her that you think, I want to be like that when I grow up, you know. And as a child, you don't really think of them as role models. They're just there in front of you, because otherwise, around in the sort of 70s, I thought, right, who did we actually have as role models as children? I was an avid Blue Peter watcher, so for those of you who remember Valerie Singleton and Leslie Judd, they were the women on Blue Peter. And of course, Biddy Baxter, who I wanted to be, who made wonderful creations. There was the Chris Dingle candle with coat hangers and tinsel. There was the Thunderbird world and all these other things they used to make on Blue Peter. A swing for your Cindy, and I was like, yes, I want to be Biddy Baxter when I grow up and make all these things. So in a way, it was, you know, I was there thinking, right, you know, I need my toilet roll and my jam jar and some sticky back plastic to make these things. And so it was women doing practical type of things. And the authors for me at that time, you know, controversially, she may well be now. I was brought up in Enid Blyton. I went to be in, you know, Enid Blyton was there, and Judy Blume, and later for me, Jilly Cooper. And I know she writes chick lit, but my heart is there for Rupert Campbell Black. Maybe I'm selling out here, but they were the sort of people I wanted to be a heroine in, you know, one of her novels or something. Cooking was featured, you know, Taggy in the Jilly Cooper novel. It's cooking again. It's always cooking. And, you know, Enid Blyton, picnics, lashing the ginger beer and all the rest of it. And then thinking back to my mum and my Auntie Kath, a family picnic in our house means everyone's cooking. We don't go and buy sausage rolls from the supermarket. Oh no, it's Mum's amazing pork pie. Auntie Kath is a great cook. We'd have picnics on the Yorkshire moors with her. And with my parents, just always homemade picnics, which is almost my favourite meal now. So, women that could cook, women that could produce all this stuff and do all that, I guess were my role models.
Yeah, they all sound like amazing role models.
Yeah. And I have to throw in, the other people with kids were the Queen and Princess Anne, because Princess Anne would go on safari with the people from Blue Peter, and then the Queen would tell she can drive a Land Rover and fix a Land Rover. And they were the people, it wasn't the pop stars.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very funny, like, from a non-English person perspective, we don't have royalty in France. And so it's always like quite interesting to see like how the royal families were like the pop stars in a way.
I feel they were. I really do. And then it'd be things, and I have to sort of mention this because I am a mixed race woman. And you people may think that, but you're not mentioning anybody of colour, because in my world there were very few female or any role models of colour. I can remember people like when Moira Stewart began reading the news, it was a big deal. There was also Angela Rippon as well, but Moira was a colour. And I was thinking back, who was there? Yeah, you'd heard of Diana Ross and the Supremes and people like that, and the 3 Degrees, and obviously Shirley, the wonderful Shirley Bassey. But there were very few women of colour in the spotlight. So people didn't really talk about that anyway. So it was just who was, you wanted to be like your friends, so you just liked who you liked. And I'm sure there was other people out there, but you could only you only saw what was put in front of you. You didn't have social media. So if they weren't in smash hits and they weren't on Top of the Pops or in your living room, then they didn't exist.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, through that, like, social media is such a great invention. You can see so many people, and you can also choose to see
exactly
who you want to see it.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you have any female role models today?
Yeah, I think it's completely different today with social media, because there are so many out there, and yet still my mum and my auntie Kath are still there.
Yeah.
And now it's people that I maybe work with. I think some of the women that I've been working with over the past few years, I sort of like to watch and observe what they're doing. Some of the managers I'm working with, the ones that give me opportunities. I worked with a great lady a couple of years ago, Anna, and I was telling her I became an I'm Remarkable facilitator, and I was telling her, and I hadn't done it. She's right. Well, you could do one for us. I was really nervous, and then she said, I've spoken to some colleagues, and you could do some for them. And she was an advocate for me. So it's people like her. Not because she was an advocate, but because it was the way she behaved and her manner. And then people I work with now, name check people like Liz, Lucy, Laura, that was elf. I work with them, they're my managers or colleagues, but I love working with them because of their behaviours and their manners. So they've become, not up on a pedestal role models, but just role models just now and again when I think, actually, I've observed them in a meeting. I really like the way they speak to people. I like their manner, their changing tone of voice, the way they deal with other people. So for me, it's people like that become role models in that way. And also the ordinary women, which are accessible to me through places like LinkedIn, where I've made some amazing connections of people I haven't even met before because they're doing fantastic things. And even through LinkedIn, it's how I connected with you. And it's so I love the fact there's, rather than people, nothing against Kim Kardashian, but the Kim Kardashian, Katie Prices of the world that are doing whatever they're doing, it's actually the ordinary women, and I see them on places like LinkedIn, and they're saying, actually, I'm actually doing these things, because we talk about things we'd like to do, but it's those women that are making the changes, that saying, actually, I'm going to support other women. There's a lady I came across, Denise, recently. She runs a company, Reach Out to Kids, and they're helping students from disadvantaged backgrounds to get into industry. And it's people like her that are making a difference. So for me, they're my role models, because they're not just talking about it, or they're not shrugging their shoulders going, well, yeah, somebody can do it. They're actually doing it themselves. So it's all those people, and there's too many to name check out there. But for me, they are my role models around me.
That's amazing. And like, as you said, I think it's so important to have people like more accessible. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, because like we can look up to Kim Kardashian, like Rihanna, or people like this who are doing like great things and stuff, but also it's so inaccessible. It's like a complete other world.
Yeah.
And do you think that the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
I don't know if it did or not, because I felt I was at times strong enough to do what I wanted. Maybe I didn't always. I was a bit of square peg in a round hole, or round peg in a square hole, whichever way around it goes these days. I've always been quite an independent thinker. So yeah, maybe some more representation could have been there of just positive. But I think, it's a generational thing, and we grew up, you'll find your way. But I think, in some ways we could have done with more women, just ordinary women doing everyday jobs because they wanted to, rather than standing out saying, why is that woman, that girl's good at physics or science or something, which was always, a bit odd, and we didn't really have tech then. So you didn't, there were women doing these things, you just didn't hear about it. So I don't think it got in my way, because who knows what path I would have taken. I think, this generation, next generation coming up now are fortunate that they have got so many role models that it's, and maybe they wouldn't have them if we hadn't fought for that.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I grew up with social media and stuff like that. I grew up with the internet and stuff. I think it took me maybe a bit of just growing up to realize how much progress there is now thanks to that, but also thanks to the works of the previous generations to just have women voices to be heard. It's really, we're really lucky to have all of this, definitely.
Yeah, I think things like the gender pay gap and the fact that women were really pushing for that, and it's there's still work to do. It doesn't seem to make sense now that women were earning less for doing
Completely.
things, or just the way they were viewed of being incapable or whatever. And I think that's still around. I know I went on maternity leave 19 years ago, and I worked full time. I was going to come back and just do one day less, and we were looking at CVs, and a colleague had said to me, "Oh, well, that person won't be any good because they're part time." And I said, "But when I come back, I'll be part time." And they just hadn't seen it, and that would drive you mad because it was another woman saying that. It's like, we're not incapable just because we're having children. In fact, we probably work, harder because you've got to prove that.
Completely.
So I think, there's work to be. Okay, that was 19 years ago, but there's work to do and changing people's, perspective of women's capability that we still need to do. It has changed a lot. It really has changed a lot, and I think people's viewpoints are different. I remember quite a few years ago, one of my sons was watching some old ancient cartoon of Superwoman or Wonder Woman, something like that, and I heard this little voice say, "That is so sexist," and I'd laugh to myself because he must have been about, I don't know, probably about 7 or 8, but to him, the way she was obviously being spoken to, whatever, just didn't sit, and I thought, there is a difference.
Yeah, and also that means that you made a great job as a mom.
But
if
noticed,
a 7 or 8 year old,
he was really young, and it was just this little voice that piped up to say that. Because you do look back now, and some films, they've moved with the times, and you can still watch them. But others, you think, oh, for goodness sake, really?
Completely. Even I absolutely love Friends, and I know that it was already considered progressive the time it went out, but there is still a lot of jokes that I hear today, and I'm like, this is so not okay. In a way, it's great to see how much the mentality has changed, so that today we are able to say wow, that was 20 years ago, but that was so not okay. And on the other hand, it's just how was that even at some point? How is that ever a thing?
And it was just normalised.
Completely.
It was normalised. That's the thing. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Look back at some of the TV programmes in the 70s, with the sort of the racist connotations and the language in those, and you think nobody would make anything like that today. I mean, maybe they just that's the time they were in, and it's thankful we've moved on, because you've got that comparison there. But I do think it shows more, with so many films that have come out with women just needing rescuing. And don't get me wrong, White Knight and Shining Armour and whoever, whether we're looking at Lancelot and Guinevere or whatever, they're stories, and that's great, and I accept that, they have their place, but I just think 70s, 80s, sometimes the way women, it seems to be then the women were treated was wow.
Completely.
Yeah.
And I think, it would be absolutely fine, because obviously these women do exist as well, but if it was not only that.
Yeah, that's it.
A little bit, yeah, of course, because these are also people who we can relate to, but also not every single female character in every movie.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Yes, it's not. When it was always like that, or they're in the background, and it's always some hero man. Whereas now, things are changing. You know, I love in the last James Bond, Lashana Lynch, when she spent that time playing 007 for a short time. Yeah, she didn't mess. I mean, for me, yeah, James Bond. I mean, yes, you know, see the sexist. I do like James Bond. You know, the late Sean Connery, still a fan.
Yeah.
But it's moved with the times, and I just like to, you know, it was good to see that yeah, she was. You know, everything had their place. You can still get the women, the glamorous ones, and the croupiers and doing that bit, but you've got those that are going, no, this isn't for me. You don't mess.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'd like to jump on the like sort of second part of the podcast and focus more on you and like a project or life achievement or something you want to talk about. Do you know what you want to talk about? Can you like present it a little bit?
Yeah, no, I've given great thought to this because this year thinking, what have I done? What have I done that's really great? Shall I talk about my time in the Territorial Army with the Armed Forces? My son's going to talk about being a mum, which are all great things that I feel I've done. But I think my latest project, I'm going to call it Finding Your Sparkle, because I wrote a blog about that recently, and it's really about women actually. And by doing this podcast with you is helping me on that journey. A few years ago, I went to an I Am Remarkable session, which is a Google initiative to help empower women to believe in themselves and speak up. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I want to do this. So I went off and I did the training, and then immediately had the imposter syndrome and thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this. What will people think? I'm not good enough, and all those worries and things. And I rehearsed, and I did my first one, which, through my ex-boss Anna got to do, and it was all fine. But I was so nervous and so worried. And that's what I was actually talking about, the fact that people feel like that. And the initiative isn't just for women, it is for people of any underrepresented group. But it was something that was, I do notice more in women, that they do so many remarkable and amazing things, and yet they don't think they do. They think, oh, we just do this, just do that. And I've done quite a few sessions. I've facilitated quite a few sessions, but I've also had some individual chats with women because they're just lacking that confidence, and I've sort of spoken to them. They've been applying for jobs. I was like, but you need to be in the right place before you go to your interview, because you're putting that doubt there all the time. So in fact, I was coaching somebody yesterday, just similar. I was saying, tell me about the great things they've done. And they're like, well, possibly, maybe I could say this. And I was like, I let them say it all. I said, right, now tell me again how, we use that phrase, I'm remarkable, but how great you are at what you do. And they changed it, and it just, the sparkle, the sentence sparkled, and so did they. And they said, that feels a bit odd. And I said, no, you've got to practice doing that. You've got to believe in yourself. And a few years ago, I did a presentation to some people, and they said, you're going to do a presentation, slides, no words, just images about your career journey and this type of thing. And for me, I thought, well, there's only one great journey out there. Back to Hollywood, Wizard of Oz, Dorothy on her journey. So I turned up with mine in that style. Everyone else is quite normal, but mine was the style of the Wizard of Oz. And I talked about setting off with my career in my basket, Toto, but that was my career, and off I went on the yellow brick road. And Dorothy bumps into the scarecrow, and brains, for me, that was going to do some qualifications and upskilling a bit. But in the background, as in the film, there's the winged monkeys, the witch. I call these the detractors, and they're the people that can be around women when they're doing things that are a bit out of their comfort zone and out of their friends' and colleagues' comfort zones. And they're there sort of, why is she doing that? What's she doing that for? And that can really eat away at you and make it really hard. So your heart's got to be in it, and like the Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz, you've got to have the heart in there to keep pushing and keep going, which I went through. And then you carry on, and they're still there, and it is a tough path to walk. And then again, courage. I mean, for me, my courage was I went to help quite a while ago at the London 2012 Olympic Games. I was part of the doping control team. And moving away from home, working with completely different people. And it's amazing, you take yourself out of one environment into another, and it's amazing what you can do. And that was just like, wow, the courage. Because when I went back, I was like, okay, I've done all this stuff. Ta-da, I'm here at the Emerald City, and nothing's happened, nothing's changed. And my old boss, who I would liken to the Good Witch Glinda, he said to me, the trouble is, he said, you've always had it, but you don't believe in yourself. And I was like, oh, wow. And then a couple of other colleagues said, you're doing these great things. You've got to tell people. And that's where the I Remarkable came in, with that fact that women don't like to speak up. They don't like to self-promote. but they also don't like other women that do that either. And I think it's tough, but you have to practice it. So I took those on board and I changed things, and I did talk about what I was doing. And yet things have really, really changed for me, and I've moved on, a few steps in my career. And I'm fortunate I work in inclusion and diversity now, because although it's my career, it's also my passion. So it's something I live every day, and probably drive people mad talking about all the time. But I always talk about that journey, because I did all these things and yet I wasn't telling anybody. I thought they would see. I thought they would know that I'd been working on a higher qualification. I thought they'd know about my experiences and journey. But I was just going, it's just something I do. And to sort of simplify it, I talk about, people being asked to make a cake and saying, bring one of your great chocolate cakes in. And you take one and you say, it's not so good today. The icing didn't turn out work, and I was in a rush. I didn't have time. And you start, my mum makes a better one, and you start putting it down. And yet people say, we love your cake. We've asked you to bring it in. And you're already telling them it's bad. And we quite often do that when you go and meet other people. It might not be for a job, it just might be someone new. And you start putting yourself down, almost like barriers in case something goes wrong, which is a protection. But you're telling that person, I'm not very good at this. And it's changing that mindset. So, very long-winded way of telling, this is my sort of project, is to sort of work with me. I've done a sort of piece for a blog, and just ways. So it's all quite new, but it is starting to have those conversations with other women, and where I can jump in and help. And someone I met quite recently said, she goes, I love talking to you, because I know as soon as I see you, you're going to have a big smile on your face. And it's like, wow, that's someone I've been working with who does other fantastic things with women. To say that, you think, okay, this is good, I'll take it. And something small like that, you've got to say thank you, and not say, I'm not really sure, and be self-depreciating. So yes, it does help me with my confidence, but it's also being able to help other women. So that's my project. It's all a bit bitty, and I know I stuck a bit of the story in there, but I felt that was important, that you can be doing so many things, and yet if you don't tell anybody how great they are, not showing off, but just telling them about the small steps. Take time, it's for you, think about it, and then let people know, and don't be scared. But also to be aware that you could have people around you that are those detractors. I find posting, I try and keep, a bit of a life-work balance there, but I have a different audience on LinkedIn than I do on Facebook. And sometimes Facebook and other types of social media, that's nothing against Facebook or Instagram, you might not get, you have to look at the audience you have there, they might not understand or comment, and that can leave you feeling a bit bereft. Whereas quite often LinkedIn, you've got people with the same passion, and therefore you get more responses and things, which will help push you on your journey. So yeah, I guess that's my project for the moment. It's small steps, but talking to you and finding out about what you're doing has made me think, small steps are the important ones. You can't always think, wow, who's this amazing person that's done something right at the top? There's all the small steps to do there. And if it's just helping a handful of women to feel better about themselves, then that's great.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's amazing. And it's amazing that you do that. And I am remarkable as well. I just did participated in one workshop, and so many of us, we did it at work, and so many of us were just saying how not great with self-promotion we are. I'm terrible with that. But it's what you're doing is so important. Thank you for doing it. And so how long was there between the moment you first started to think about it and the first actions that you actually took?
I think it was probably a couple of years, actually. It was mixed up with things about cultural identity, as I was calling it then, and women, and something you sort of mull over in your head, but not knowing what the outlet could be. And I started writing a bit of poetry, I call it my mum poetry, and just because I've just found being creative was quite a good way to do that, but not really having anybody to talk about it with, which I know sounds a bit odd, but it was finding those connections. And then slowly over the past couple of years, it did start with the I Am Remarkable and that sort of thing, and the presentation that I did, the Wizard of Oz presentation. So that was a step, but that was still probably, that's about 7 years ago. So they took a while, but now I feel the past couple of years that it's much easier, and it seems a bit of a disconnect, but I don't feel it is the murder of George Floyd, which caused so many changes in people's lives And from that, people are talking, I know that that's about race and people are talking about race, but it still means people are actually talking about inclusion and diversity in a different way, which includes women and gender. That's, I think people are talking about so much more now that it's almost, it's off the back of that things have accelerated, because I think people feel more able to talk. So a very sad situation of what happened, but I think it's been a catalyst for so many other things. So I say the past couple of years. So it's been quite a few years, but something that's happened in the world has enabled lots of other change as well.
Yeah. How may I ask, how did you deal with that, like, emotionally? Because it was very tragic. Like, I remember I was like not okay on so many levels, because like human rights, it's always it feels hard. Yeah. How do you manage to like?
Yeah, I mean, there was part of it has a disconnect. It happened somewhere else, but it's the more it was colleagues. I remember getting into work and someone saying, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, if I missed something, why would I not be okay?" And then he said, "Why?" And I was like, "Oh, I haven't. I think I'd missed the news this morning," and read it. And then it can never be forgotten. But I think it's it's the shock of actually somebody doing that and being witnessed, and people thinking it was okay. And I think it was horrific to see, but also on top of that, it was people's reactions that some people say, oh, but he was a criminal, oh, but this. It's like, no, this is a human being. Yeah. So that was quite, that was shocking in itself. So, yeah, I think I'm not saying acceptance is necessarily the right word, but it's acceptance that sadly people do behave in that manner. But it's something that I think, okay, we can't forget that it has been a catalyst for so many other things, that it's, we can't forget. Now is the time to make sure, and it's not just about ethnicity, whether we're talking about disability, gender, or anything else, that, let's make a stand for human rights. And not when people go, oh, it's against my human right. We're not talking about we're not talking about an excuse for people's bad behaviour, but just a basic human rights.
Definitely, yeah. And yeah, jumping back on like your journey and like how you started it, how did you start? Like, how did you do? Like, what was the first steps between like thinking about it and like first acting about it?
I think it was just I was having one of those moments where I was feeling positive, and being in a workshop and thinking, I want to do this, and actually thinking, no, sign up, do it. So acting straight away. I think that was the thing. And then, yes, the self-doubt did come in. But actually taking the steps, thinking, no, am I going to overcome this? Because it's easy to have that and go, oh, I won't do it. That's the easy option. But sometimes go, no, if you want to make a difference, and I think age has come into it as well. Mm-hmm. I think not that I care less, but I do, you're not impacted by people's comments quite as much. I think when you're younger, sometimes you can be, and as you learn, as you grow older, you think, no, actually, now's the time. If I want to make a change, however small, I've got to just do it, and also be able to look back on things in the past that you think, okay, I felt really uncomfortable in that situation, but now I'd be like, hey, So it's that I think there's that inner strength, and I do think you do find that as you get older. Sometimes some things in life can be very trying, and then you come through them, but you learn from that experience, and you can take it with you, and they help you do the next thing.
Cool. And was there someone, like any figure, who had an important impact on you to make all of this?
I think probably my boys.
Yeah?
Yeah, my boys, Will and Benjamin, or Benji, sorry Ben. Because I want to make the world a better place for them. And they wouldn't, I've brought them up to be really independent, to question, to be compassionate. And I think, I wouldn't want them to go through any injustice or things that are wrong. So, and then listening, I listen to them, but I want the world to be a better place for them. So I think, they are, a starting point for all this, definitely. Yeah, and then back to my parents as well. I didn't mention my dad either, but, I think they did what they could. Dad sadly died last year of dementia, but he was always very pragmatic, but he was very honest, and he always did the right thing. And I keep that with me now. I think, Dad would always do the right thing. He would do it correctly, and he would do the right thing. So I think, parents in my mind as well, of what they would do to make a change.
Yeah, so like, yeah, they all seem like great people to have around. That's great. And why are you proud of it?
I think it's just the difference it makes for other people. For me, it's a conversation. It's a simple conversation. But if somebody can go off and think, oh, I feel good, I can do that, then that's great, because other people have done that for me, and I think it's that passing it on.
So yeah, that's such an important work, and like definitely a lot to be proud of. And what challenges have you faced?
I think some of them have been inner challenges. I think definitely, as I mentioned, that self-doubt again, that you can talk yourself out of things. You have these great ideas, and I do have far too many ideas every day, but I can talk myself out of things as equally as I can talk myself, probably even easier than I can talk myself into doing things. So they can be challenges. And I think it's talking to the right people about it as well, because you've got to accept that not everybody has the same passions as you and that they necessarily care about things. It's not that they're any less, but they just don't have the same passions. So it's finding people to bounce ideas off or talk about, or the fact that you just got to get that inner strength and just go for it. So I think they're the challenges. It's around that.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you overcome it, or like how are you overcoming it?
Just step by step. I think talking to people more. Yeah. I think talking has got to be the thing. So if I'm talking to somebody, even if I'm helping them, it's almost a two-way thing, that actually they're helping me. And if they've, you get that rapport with people, or you haven't got that rapport, whatever it is, but you can see it, and then you can see, oh, thank you, give me an idea, that's made a difference. Then that helps you grow yourself and think, yes, this is worthwhile, this is worth doing.
Yeah, the more it goes, and like the more I guess I grow and like talk to people, the more I realize how much you get. Well, I think I've always been like I love talking to strangers. But like I strongly think you have so much to learn from like literally everyone, but also how much like connections you can make, and how much you can discover that someone knows someone that can actually help you in like doing what you think. And it's so important. And sometimes these are the people who help also counterbalance that like little voice in your head that's like, oh, you shouldn't do that, and then they're like, no, you should.
I totally agree with you there. I do think it's time for women that they are able to be more independent and just have those random conversations. I look back and think, would I have done this when I was younger? I'd probably be sitting here very nervous. I wouldn't have enough to say, or feel I have enough to say. So it's something that does grow with you. But the more conversations you have, and they're natural conversations as well, then you learn from them. You can go away and think, oh yeah, I had that great conversation. We mentioned this, we mentioned that, and that's the difference.
Yeah, completely. And was there, on the contrary, anything that was easier than you thought would have been?
Yeah, I just think, do you know what? Once you make the decision to do something and just go for it, I think it's that. I think it's you can put all these things in your head, you can put all the barriers up. You think, no, just look for a solution and just give it a go. And it becomes easy. You can spend time with all your ideas, but just give it a go. Just start. And then you think, oh, actually, why didn't I do this before? But it's actually, as soon as you've started, it's like staring at a blank piece of paper, or the blank screen, think I've got to write something. And then get in the zone, you start, and you're like, don't disturb me, I'm just here. I've got it.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think we're reaching the end of my questions. But yes, so like interesting and amazing work that you're doing. So yeah, thank you so much for like being here, taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we haven't mentioned during our conversation that you wanted to talk about?
I think we've covered most things. I want to say this is really random, but I am really random, is ladies, look after your health. Think about what you eat and look after your knees. And I say that as someone who suffers from arthritis now. You will not, honestly, you think, yeah, it's all fine, but honestly, when you get older and you can't walk around and do the things that you want to, it's incredibly frustrating. So yeah, look after yourself, look after your health, your well-being, and just thank you to all those women that have been in my life. In fact, they're not just women, there are men as well. that I haven't mentioned, you know, my sisters and other people at work. I haven't mentioned my husband and all that sort of thing. So yeah, you know, it's a big shout out to all of them because they're all role models in their own way, and they're all, you know, they're all part of my life, and that's support. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We're going to conclude on that note, and as usual in this podcast, the guest has the very last word, so the mic is yours.
Find your sparkle. Yeah, believe in yourself.